You want your business to get better, you got to deal with your own limiting beliefs and negative self-talk and how you view yourself and the value you bring to the world. Those are really at the core of what we do, here in the fight, where I like to say we educate, we train, and we change the lives of contractors.
Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. What's up, everybody? Mike Hickman here with you, founder of paintergrowth.com, and you're here listening to or watching, if you're on YouTube, another episode of the Painter Growth Podcast. And huge episode here for you guys today. I have an exciting guest here, Mr. Tom Reber, founder of Contractor Fight. I don't know if you call yourself founder or owner or whatever, but what do you call the main card? The main card?
I don't even know what you call it, man. I'll go with whatever you throw out there.
The main card.
Okay.
All right, you're
the top card,
card,
main card. Who knows?
Well, stoked to talk to you today. I know you are a bucket of knowledge for contractors, and it's a fight, right? I've been there. You've been there. When you're hustling out there every single day, it's a fight. So why don't you just tell me a little bit about how you just in general look at that in terms of a fight and how you help contractors get out of the fight?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me, Mike, and you're doing great things. The contracting world needs this stuff. And, what do they say? When the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And, that's just something that we've always known, that, you got to get to a certain point in your life and business before you really want to make things better. Most people get into a business, whatever the business is, knowing the craft or the trade or the thing, and they don't understand all that goes along with running the business and getting clients and selling and making money. And so, anyway, hat tip to you, man.
Thank you.
What you got going on.
That means
so yeah, the contractor fight, it's named the fight because it's the fight between your ears that we're addressing, is really where it all starts. You want your business to get better, you got to deal with your own limiting beliefs and negative self-talk and how you view yourself and the value you bring to the world. Those are really at the core of what we do, here in the fight, where I like to say we educate, we train, and we change the lives of contractors. And we've been doing it for a number of years and thousands of clients all over the place. And, the heart and soul, I guess, of our community, our tribe, whatever you want to call it, is people that have a high drive to succeed. They're accountable to themselves. They have self-awareness. They despise the idea of being a victim in the world. And they also have huge hearts, which I find to be true of most people in the trades. They're great people that would do anything for anybody. And sadly, they end up putting themselves last, and their needs. And, we like to talk here a lot about getting oxygen. You have to get your own oxygen before you can feed those around you. And, most contractors don't make what they're worth, equal to the value that they're bringing. And so we're changing that on a daily basis, man.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great way to phrase the mission. And, I feel like a lot of, us on the coaching side of it share a mission. Just, we all just describe it a little bit differently. So I love the fight between your ears. And the concept of victimhood, right? So often we hear the economy is crap, or there's no good painters, or there's no good employees out there, or these customers are just all garbage. So let's break down that a little bit more in terms of that victim mentality. Where are you seeing that most, and how does that affect or impact our businesses on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, in the trades, you specifically see it in things like, I'm not making more money because of the illegal competitors in my area. I'm not making more money because customers are cheap. I'm not making more money because who's in the White House or what's going on in the economy or whatever it might be. And the truth of the matter is those are just circumstances. Those are field conditions. And the person who refuses to be a victim, they understand that field conditions are always going to change and they're not always going to be ideal, but you still have a responsibility to find a way to win. And that just takes some looking in the mirror and what we call own your crap. What in your character is holding you back from being more successful? Because as you know, in any economic season, people are winning, so what's the difference between the winners and the losers? The winners take responsibility. And, back, I had a painting company and, during the last, what do we call it? We called it the Great Recession in 2008 or whatever. All of us were dealt the same conditions, right? And circumstances. And we had to figure out, how do we unify our team? How do we get to a point where we're profitable with with half the leads coming in and those types of things? And, when you're focused on where you want to go instead of the problems in front of you, you're more likely to get where you want to go, no matter what's going on around you. So I think one of the things that drives me crazy is when I hear painters, talking painters here, they talk about, I got to be competitive with the going rate, and the going rate is the fastest way to poverty. So, I know you coach people, we coach people. 95% of contractors don't know their numbers. So why would you give a crap what the going rate is if 90% of your competitors don't know their numbers, and that's why so many contractors, they might've been in business 10 years, but they're living the same year over and over and over and over because they continue to focus on the things that they don't have control over. So I
like that. I like it phrased like that. They live in the same year. It's like, I've been in business for 25 years. Well, you've been in business for 1 year because you've done the same year 25 times in a row.
Yeah. I mean, if you're still at the same revenue and profit, if you still have issues with building and growing a team and retaining people, if you're dealing with the same problems year over year, then you're the problem. You're not growing. And so we put a ton of emphasis here in the fight on you growing as a human being, and, I say this all the time, but I really don't care about your business. Like I could care less about your business. I care about you as a human being and what kind of, spouse you are and parent and friend. And, are you living to your potential? Are you growing? Because you can always start another business. You can always find a way to make money. But the one constant is you're always going to have you. You're always going to carry you into whatever you do. So let's make you better. And as a byproduct of that, the business grows.
Absolutely. I really liked what you said when you phrased how to make it work instead of accepting it, right? One thing a lot of people are not struggling with, but going through right now is that, it's October, we're going into winter, we're going into the slow months, and people are fighting with the decision to lay people off or double down on marketing. How do you typically coach people when thinking through that dichotomy?
Well, I think I'm a fan of you're always marketing and you're always hiring 365 days a year. Most contractors, they market when they don't have leads and they try to hire when they need employees. And those are the two worst times to do those things, right? Because you're reactive instead of proactive. And one of the reasons that you get into a situation where, oh, I got to lay people off and all this other garbage is because if you go all the way back to the foundation of your business, you're not building a business based on the real targets and goals that you have that are going to give you the life and the business and the brand that you want to build. You're not profitable enough. I mean, in the contractor fight, our golden rule here is you get a 50% profit or better on your projects. Like that's where we'll take people coming in, doing, a 20-30% gross profit, which is, you might as well have poverty at that point, right? I mean, if you do a $10,000 job to keep $2 or $3 grand, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then, there's the percentage of those commercial jobs, the last check doesn't come in. That's your paycheck. Yeah.
So, it's again, it comes back to one of our principles here is get oxygen, and what does that look like? And again, most people aren't clear on what they need to break even and what they need to not go into debt. And I think, one of the things one of the phrases in business that I hate, I need a different word for it. Like I'm all for growing, but the whole scaling thing drives me crazy. You know, it's like with social media and Instagram and people posing with Ferraris and all this, scale your business and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know, what I see a lot of people do is they scale before they're as profitable as they can be, and they end up scaling a turd. You know, they have a piece of crap and they just have a bigger piece of crap that does more revenue. And so when somebody says, I want to scale my business, I always ask, what do you want to scale? Do you want to scale revenue, days off, profit, you know, your team? There's a multitude of things you could scale. So get clear on what you want to grow and then reverse engineer the plan from there. And, you know, that's why, you know, we'll have people in our community that are running, you know, $1.5 million businesses, and they're paying themselves $300,000-400 grand a year because they're very clear on what they want to do and who they are. And they're doing it with a team of 3 or 4 people, you know, because they also understand that not every prospect out there is going to be your customer, nor should they be. But when you're intentional about who you are, where you want to go, what you're going to stand for as a brand, the right people are going to gravitate towards that. And, you know, you're not building a customer list of a bunch of, you know, non-ideal clients, you know, that you just got to keep feeding the machine to keep up.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of reverse engineering your goal. That's the very first, you know, training that we do. First thing that we do with clients when they come in is figure out where they want to go. Because if you hop in the car and you don't have a destination in mind, chances are you're gonna not end up where you want to be, right? You don't tell the Uber driver where you're trying to go, you're not going to get to the, you know, ideal destination.
Well, and you also need to know where you're at now too, you know. And, you know, we just had a training call that I did an hour ago and talking about, you know, creating their 2024 marketing plan. And I said, it's not enough to go, I want to grow by $500,000 next year. You need to say, if we're talking painters, is, you know, in 2024, we want to add $500,000 worth of interior painting projects in this area, in this zip code, in this niche, whatever it is, and get super clear on what you want more of. Instead of just putting out some big revenue goal, where do you want that money to come from? What do you want the gross profit to be? And again, like you said, you know, you reverse engineer the steps to get there. You work the plan every day with consistency and discipline, and you'll get there.
Yeah.
No matter what the economy is, you know,
you can even go one step further, and instead of, you know, starting at the revenue goal, just like you said, is the profit your main driver for the year. So I want to make $200K profit, you know, doing these types of jobs.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because, you know, people will come in, you probably get this, people come into the program and they go, what should my goal net profit percentage be? And I don't think in terms of percentages, I think in terms of dollars, you know, and if it happens to be 20 or 30%, that's great. But it's above and beyond paying myself what I need to pay myself to have a non-stressful financial life, you know, and meet the needs of my team. How much money do I want in the bank at the end of the year that makes all the squeeze, or makes the juice worth the squeeze, right? So, yeah, you're not going to change your life, you know, talking hundreds or little percentage points. You're going to change your life by talking big chunks of money.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I think the contracting world as a whole has been conditioned to think that we should just get the scraps because we're in the trades, and that's BS. You know, there's no reason. I mean, there's no reason that you can't pay yourself as a painting contractor right now, 50 grand a month, you know, in your pocket. So you just got to go get it.
I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different direction than I thought I would, talking to someone like you. You know, we have, like, you know, you got a tough male persona, but I feel like our conversation is leading towards financial literacy and the importance of that. So making money and having money at the end of the year are two different things. You can make money, you can cash flow your life, but if you don't increase your cash balance at the end of the year by looking at your profit and loss statement on a monthly basis and your cash flow statement, you can work your ass off and have a, you know, outwardly successful business, but still end up like making no money or not having any money if you don't know your numbers and understand financials.
Yeah. Well, our very first pillar, and, you know, that we coach on is, we call it confidence in numbers. You know, how money works in a business, what I literally just shot a video the other day on basic business math terminology definitions. What is break-even point? You ask most contractors, what's your break-even point? They say, it's my overhead, whatever their overhead is, right?
Yeah.
That's not your break-even. Your break-even is affected by your produced gross profit percentage.
Yep.
And so if your overhead is 20 grand a month and you're bringing in, you're doing a 30% gross profit. What's the calculator say? 20 grand divided by 0.3,
60,000,
67 grand a month. You got to bring in and deposit just to break even and not make a net profit.
Yep.
Versus a 50% gross profit, you got to bring in 40 grand, so you're doing less projects. Probably, your average job size and profit is going to go up because how to. Number one pillar is confidence in numbers. Number two is we teach you how to sell unafraid. Number three, attract the right eyeballs, more of the right ideal clients, so that you're not doing work for people that are not a great fit for you. And so when you have those three things working together, the needle moves pretty quick. I'm thinking of a guy right now came to us, he was doing 300 grand a year and he only paid himself 12 grand, losing money. Within 12 months of implementing those things, he was doing 2.7 million at a 50% gross profit.
Yeah.
But
incredible.
It starts with understanding the rules of money and business. And anyway, it's all
sure.
It's all how you think about it. And
it absolutely is. And you do have to, like, as the word that you hate, scale, grow your business. You do have to shift from the technician mindset to the business owner mindset, and a large chunk of it, like in that CEO role, is financial analysis and financial understanding, making decisions based on the numbers. Have you ever heard of the metric contribution margin per hour?
I think I know where you're going. Maybe a different terminology, but what do you got? Because we might use different terminology.
When I was painting, this is my favorite number to look at on a weekly basis. On Sunday, I would always do my numbers Sunday afternoon. I would tell my girlfriend at the time that it was only going to take an hour. Ended up taking all afternoon.
Yeah.
And so that is how much gross profit or gross margin, as I would call it, each one of my painters was making per hour. So if I was paying them 25, I was making, 20 or 22 or whatever. And so I have 6 painters going at a time. Every hour I'm making, $180 per hour every hour that they're working. So that was my favorite number when I was running my business is contribution margin.
Yeah. We called it, we broke it down where we had, you sell a job, you sell a project that's $1,000 and it's 10 hours, your revenue per hour that you sold it at is $100 an hour. Right. And then we would break it down in what your cost per goods are per hour, your gross profit per man hour, your overhead per man hour, your net profit per man hour, like all those things. So I just never used the word contribution in there, but I like it. I learned something new. Thanks.
I think the concept of contribution is like how much it's contributing to your net profit.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. And that term for those types of businesses that do a lot of revenue, but no profit, I like to call it, they make a lot of smoke, but not a lot of fire, right? We had a client similar doing $1 million, paid himself $80K. How you doing this?
Yeah. Well, I knew a guy years ago, he's a painter doing $4 million a year. His net profit was 40 grand. I'm like, find a bridge and jump off the thing, man. Cause that's like insanity.
Well, not only the work that you're doing in order to accomplish how hard you're running to get that, right? It's like running through a mud pit, but the liability that you're taking on.
Yeah. I mean, listen, what kind of life, like, just think about it for a minute here. If you want to, everybody goes into business saying they want to do things differently. They want to add value. They want to have great employees and give them a future and a great culture. And you can't do that without money, right? You have, like it or not, the rules of the world say, if you have money, shit's easier, right? It's just easier. And, one of my coaches the other day with one of our groups, he was like, he asked the chat box, he says, what percentage of your problems last year were money related? And the consensus of all the comments of hundreds of people in there was like 80%, right? So, listen, you're going to have a lot of problems in your life. Just, make sure money's not one of them. Right. And I think money is pretty much the easiest problem to fix, believe it or not. So, because money's not emotional. It doesn't judge you. It just is what it is. The numbers tell the truth. So, Yeah, stop selling yourselves short, my friends, because it's out there, and it's out there. Oh well, I'm $5,000 and everyone else is $3,000. Well, if people aren't buying that, then it's on you to be a better marketer, build a stronger brand, because there's safety in a brand. People want to work with a brand. When you position yourself as an expert in your industry, you command more money. People want to work for you. And it's also an issue of how do you communicate? How do you communicate your value? How do you sell around their reasons for buying versus all the reasons you think they should hire you? That's, our biggest, probably biggest coaching area is the way we teach sales training. It's all about them. It's not about you. I mean, when I speak to groups and stuff, I'll get up and I'll go, share with me all the reasons that people should buy from you, why you think they should buy. And guys will be like, oh, I'm in the PCA, or we won business of the year. Or we don't subcontract our work, or it's all English speaking crews, and we clean up, and, warranties. And then I hit a slide and it puts up all the reasons I knew they were going to tell me. And as valid as those might be, as good as those things might be, none of those are more important than the prospect's reason for wanting to do the project. And if you connect emotionally with them there, it's game over. So, because I mean, literally I had hundreds of examples. One of my favorites was this woman I sold this project to for 3 or 4 times the price of everyone else, by the way, at the time. Her number one motive for who she was going to hire is she wanted to make sure they didn't wake her twins up during nap time. That was it. That was it. And I was the only one that pulled that out of her. And I said, well, hey, that sounds important. I said, what if we adjusted our start time a little later? The kids slept from like 1 to 2:30 every day or whatever it was. I said, we'll take lunch a little before 1. I'll have the crew go off site to the park. They'll take lunch down there. And then when your kids wake up, text the crew leader, they'll come back and they'll finish the day out. And that was the deal breaker right there. It had nothing to do with anything else. She didn't care what it cost. She did, because her kids didn't sleep. She never got any sleep. And that was her only hour and a half of the day where she had any peace and time to herself and whatever. And that was her motive for really deciding who was going to paint her house.
Didn't care about the prep process. Didn't care about what products you were using.
Mm-mm.
Just that. It's very similar concept to our sales training. It's like, what's been your previous experiences with contracting?
Mm-hmm.
What's important to you in this job? Like, is there anything else unique that we should know? You ask these questions and they're going to tell you some pretty surprising things, and you got to remember them because you got to sell them back. You got to present that and actually follow through with those promises as well.
Mm-hmm.
Your crew.
Yep.
So when you start working with the biz, a lot of our clients, a lot of our listeners are, in that, like, we definitely got some bigger guys, doing $1 million plus. Shout out to you guys, hopefully making the net profit to go with those numbers. But a big chunk are kind of within that $10,000 to $50,000 per month, trying to get out of that rat race. So what's your, prescription for that type of contractor who, like, maybe can't get off the tools or can't get out of production management? You're working, phones ringing at 8 o'clock at night. How do you kind of quell that?
Well, I think you got to first determine where do they want to go, before you can help somebody fix anything. You got to know, what are your goals? Where do you want to go? There's some guys that love working in the field, but they hate all the other garbage around it. Right. We've had people that have set their business up to keep working in the field where they just didn't even lead a crew. They were just a carpenter out in the field, and they had a sales team and they had an office team, and they just liked to build stuff, and they'd show up once a week for the owner's meeting, so it's, but I think it starts first and foremost. If you just say, okay, I'm stuck at $50,000 a month and I want to get to 100, there's a lot of context I don't know, right?
For sure. Yeah, we're talking
as a coach, I can't prescribe without understanding context, but generally it's coming down to a couple things. We've kind of touched on knowing the numbers. I think the second thing is most contractors are baby birds in the nest waiting for Google to give them a lead. Here's your little lead, and the baby birds are like, feed me. They're waiters. They're just waiting for things to come to them, and they don't do a lot of very simple, repeatable things each and every day that will be proactive into building their pipeline. number one. They end up waiting. We have a thing we teach in our group that takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day via text that, I'm thinking of a guy named Bob who sold over $1 million in 2020, between summer of 2022 and summer of 2023, he sold $1 million additional by doing something that takes him 5 to 10 minutes a day. That's being on the attack. And at our event in Denver every fall, we just had it. I'm on stage telling the story of that about Bob. I get off the stage, I go hug Bob, and he's like, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" He says, "I just sold another $130,000 while you're doing your talk," because he did the thing. Okay. So you can't be a waiter, right? Be an educator, get out there, build relationships. A lot of these guys, they don't think about doing any of this stuff until the schedule dries up, and then they wonder why they can never get over a hump. So that's number one, is being on the attack. Number two, most salespeople suck. Okay. I have a book coming out in 2024 called Sell Unafraid, and it's all about winning more in sales through personal discipline. All right. Most salespeople, you mentioned Alex Hermosi earlier, I think before we hit record, right? And, what he would call commission breath. They're desperate for the sale. They just want to close the deal and this and that. Salesmanship is really rooted in being a great communicator. So most salespeople suck at communication. Like we talked about, our step in the process, we call the motive, right? Like we pull the motive out. And when you learn how to communicate and really connect with your prospects emotionally, it's not uncommon to see an increase in average job size of 10, 15, 20, 30% right out of the gate, just because you're a better communicator, which is also like nothing stands alone, right? Like you can, there's an old saying that like really good marketing, meaning that connects with your ideal client, right? Resonates with them, attracts them, pulls them in, is like a good shot in golf that puts the ball right next to the cup, so that the sales call is just a gimme putt. So I think all these things work when you're confident in your numbers, and confidence is contagious, by the way. When you're confident, people want to work with you. But when you're all desperate and wishy-washy and uncertain, that sends a message that you can't be trusted. So you got to know what your numbers are. Unapologetically stick to those, plant your flag and go, this is what we charge. All right. But then when you market properly, and you communicate properly in the sales process, these things work together. That's going to take you from 40, 50 a month to 100 a month, like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Like, this is my price. Be unapologetic about it. Oh, can you do a little bit cheaper? Well, actually we can't. This is our price. When we know what our costs are to get this job done, and this is what it's going to cost to get a good job. So yeah, sales, like you said, is a transfer of trust. And being accountable to yourself is, the best way to create trust. What are some, easy tips that people can do to create that kind of 90% sold effect with the homeowner before they even show up, right? That golf shot that lands right close to the pin.
I think educating, meaning we live in an era with social media and supercomputers and studios in our pocket that, if you have, what are those common questions that you're getting all the time? Should I use a flat or an eggshell finish? Which is better? Stupid stuff like that, that we live in this world all day, but that's what people are Googling, right? How much does it cost to paint a kitchen? How much does it cost to paint cabinets? Whatever, any question that's ever being asked, you should be answering it through your content, through videos, through blogs, articles, whatever, right? YouTube channel, I don't care what it is. And what that does is it builds expert status, which builds trust. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I think, do you make it easy for people to communicate with you? I keep coming back to communication here, but it's so key. Like, do you answer your phone? Do you honor the commitments that you make? I mean, I feel ridiculous saying this because it's such low-hanging fruit, but like if you answer your phone within 2 rings, you will most likely get the job in our day and age. That's how pathetic the service industries are right now. Okay.
Yeah. Answer your phone and show up on time. And if you're going to be late, call the client and let them know you're going to be late, even if it's a minute. I mean, it's ridiculous we're even having to have this conversation, because what your listeners are wanting right now is like, what's the advanced technique? There's what wins football games? Blocking and tackling. No matter who your offensive coordinator is, can you block? Can you protect the quarterback? That's it. If you do that, you're going to win more games than you lose. And it's the same in business. It always comes back to the basics. And yet most people are always looking for like
the next thing. What's the next thing? And they think
how can I use AI?
Yeah. And that's great. Those are all tools and stuff. But, I think, education is huge. I think, the way that you build your culture intentionally, you have a culture right now. You just got to ask, is this the culture I want? And so, and then this one usually is where I lose people because they think I'm full of crap. But how are you showing up personally as an individual, the leader of your company? All right. Do you respect yourself? All right. Are you, can you do basic things like get out of bed when your alarm goes off? Can you honor the workout that you put on the calendar? Can you come home at 5 o'clock for dinner like you promised your family 3 nights in a row and you were late? Like, that's how you do one thing's how you do everything, right? And so, the number one detriment to any business is the leader. 100% of the time. My guys are idiots. They did, okay, well, you're the leader. You hired them. You kept them. It's still on you. And so, I believe trust is built when you're the type of individual that's worthy of being trusted and respected, and that trickles down through your organization,
that comes to the concept of extreme ownership, right? If one of your guys screws up or doesn't show up, it's ultimately your fault.
Yeah. Your culture is the intersection between your expectations and what you tolerate, and, if Johnny's late for work again, and he still works here and you've been warning him for 6 months, you've been tolerating it. Right. So, if you're not making the money you want to make right now and you're a low profit company, you've been tolerating it. What are you going to do about it? But trust is, I think, again, I just think trust is one of those things that, you got to make daily deposits on. Am I being trusted? We had a guy in one of our free pages the other day. He was like, "Oh, my wife doesn't respect me." All right. And which is the case for a lot of guys in the trades. Just because we hear it all the time. We work with a lot of couples and, we do a lot with women in the trades and stuff like that. And the woman, I'll speak to the men here. And if you have a spouse who's a woman, this applies, right? Because I can only speak from the male point of view. He's like, my wife doesn't respect me. And my first question back was, well, do you respect yourself? And after a 10-minute back and forth with our thumbs, he's like, no, I don't respect myself. Okay. So if you want to be trusted and respected, you need to start with living the type of life that you can look in the mirror and be proud of the human being that you are. And for those that have a spouse right now that's not supportive of your business after X amount of years, like we hear this a lot, the longer you're in business coaching, you'll hear this too, Mike, is, when I started my business, she was really supportive and now she's not. Well, she's not because year in and year out, you tell her, baby, this year is going to be different. And it ain't different. All right. We're going to make more money. You don't make more money. I'm going to be home for dinner. You're not home for dinner. We're going to have a date night. You don't have a date night. Right. We're going to start working out together. You don't work out together, whatever it might. I don't care what it is. The reason your spouse does not support you anymore is they think you're full of shit. Right. And at some level, they don't trust you. So start being the type of person who's worthy of that trust and respect. And you'll be, another huge pillar concept in the fight is that success is an inside out game and it starts at home. So when I work with somebody, one of my first questions is, if I'm working with you and say this is our first call, the first thing I'm going to dig into is I'm going to go, Mike, when's the last time you took your wife on a date? Mike, when's the last time
you're asking me?
Okay, Mike, sure. Talk to me about your fitness plan for yourself. What's that look like? And a lot of guys be like, I thought this was business coaching. I'm like, yeah, it is, because it starts with you. Your business will only be as strong as you are personally and in your closest relationships at home are. Dude, that's why at our Mile High event in the fall, spouse tickets are half price because we want your spouse in the room. We want you to be a partnership. We do workouts in the morning. We serve healthy snacks. It's not a big drunk fest like most of the events are out there in the world, right? And the biggest fans that we have in the fight are the spouses of our contractors, because we're calling them to be better men. And, it's really ridiculous how simple it is to succeed in business if you get yourself dialed in.
Yeah, you got to be accountable to yourself, and then really a lot of the pieces will fall into place. You do what you say you're going to do with your spouse and yourself, and then your clients, and all of a sudden they're gonna take notice. There's such a low bar, externally, from what you have to jump over to really wow a client. That as long as you like you said, if you answer the phone, if you show up, like chances are you'll get the job. So when we're going back to the concept of culture, and what did you say that your culture is the crossroad between your expectation and what you tolerate?
Yeah. If I expect you to fill your time cards out by such and such day and time, and I tolerate it when you don't, where I tolerate that is where our culture ends up. Right. And so I don't know, it's just made sense to me. Like, a lot of guys are like, we want to have what's the one that's thrown around all the time? We're like a family around here, right? We're like a family in this business, yet they don't have any meetings. They don't do anything fun together. They don't hang out. They don't communicate well. They can't tell each other the truth, right? They talk behind people's backs, and you're tolerating that. And you're tolerating it because you're the one leading the way, But, one of my former partners, he's former because he's retired now. He, every quarter he would go on a truth hike with his team. He lives in Maryland, this gorgeous wooded area, and they'd get in a single file line, and they're a small team, but they would just go hike, and they would you had free reign to tell anybody on the team anything you wanted to tell them, him included. Right? If you thought something was stupid, you can tell the other person something was stupid. They were truly a family because he facilitated that. That was his expectation, and then he made it happen. Right? If you're never, you want a tighter team, spend time together. Right? Have fun together, recognize each other, have each other's back. Culture is, you have one. You just got to make sure you're intentional about it.
So with that, with that being said, how do you, get teams to take more accountability and take more responsibility, right? There's people listening to this that are like, every time my phone rings from a team member, it's a problem that I have to solve.
Yeah.
So how do you work towards fixing that?
Well, first you got to hire right. You got to hire people that align with your values. There's enough said on that. We don't have to get crazy, but, you got to hire people that give a crap, right? So that's just who they are. Years ago, I had a crew leader who was an amazing painter, knew way more about solving problems on a job site than I did. Can paint circles around anyone I've ever met. Yet he was insecure when it came time to making a decision when he ran into a problem on the job site, right? For whatever reason, he didn't want to be wrong. He didn't want to piss me off. Who knows, right? He used to call, "Hey boss, I ran into this. What should I do?" And I used to answer the questions, right? Because we want to feel important as the boss. We want to feel like we have all the answers and we're adding value to our company. So we show up with our cape on and we solve the problem. And one day, this was an accident. It certainly wasn't on purpose and it wasn't brilliance, but it ended up being the most brilliant thing I ever did with this guy. I was in the middle of a couple things and he kept calling me and I kept not answering. He kept calling and I'm like, fine. And I answer the phone. I go, "What? I'm busy." Whatever it was. And he goes, "Hey, I ran into XYZ on the job and blah, blah, blah. What should I do?" And I said, "Hey, let me ask you a question. If this were your own side job that you were doing on the weekend and we ran into this problem, what would you do?" And he goes, "Well, I would do this, this, and this." I go, "Great, do that." And I hung up. And what started to happen after that is I learned to put things back in people's court. So when you have an employee who is blowing your phone up with problems, all right, instead of being in the dictator mode of telling them what to do, take a breath, take a step back and go, "Hey, Mike, that sounds like you got an interesting issue out there. What do you think you should do?" "Well, I don't know. That's why I called you." "Okay, well, let's say you couldn't get a hold of me. What would you do? What do you think you should do?" Well, I would probably this, that, and the other thing.
Curl up in a ball and cry in the corner.
Yeah, there you go. And my rule is if their solution is ethical, if it's respectful of the client and the experience, and moves us closer to the goal of finishing a great project, then I go, great, sounds good. And what that does is it builds their decision-making capabilities and confidence. All right. But if you're always rescuing them, then you're always going to be rescuing them, and you're never going to grow your team to where they can't operate without you. Excuse me. So
the solution is so simple. It's just like, okay, they keep asking me questions, just stop answering them.
Yeah. And, you can evolve that. You'd be like, hey, listen, I appreciate you calling. What have you tried? Okay. And what we got to fast tracking several years of this with this guy, was that he would then call me, and I knew if he was calling me, he needed to talk to me, and he would get on the phone. He'd go, hey, we ran into this. I tried this. I had this conversation with the client. That wasn't going with this, blah, blah, blah. I need you. And that might have happened twice a year after we kind of ironed all that out. So as far as like, let's say you want to train your team how to run jobs and bring them in profitably so you don't have to babysit and be, at the center of all that stuff. That's also it. Again, it's a training issue, but it's sitting down and just going, hey, Mike, my goal is this, is for me to hand you a project. You take it from start to finish so that I can focus on business development, marketing, recruiting, those other things. So we can build a stronger company so that you can be busy year round. You could be making more money, blah, 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 right? What's in it for them? I need your help. Okay. Anytime you ask somebody for help, they want to help. They're going to be like, what's up? And you're like, what I would love to do is when I hand you a project with the hours and the expectations and all this other stuff, I'd like you to just put your eyes on it and come up with a game plan of how you can approach the project so that we can finish on time. Can you do that for me? And then we'll debrief it, we'll job cost it, and we'll talk about it at the crew leader meeting the next week or whatever it might be. But you start giving them ownership. Like I actually hate the word delegation. I like the word ownership. Like my crew leaders became mini owners on the job. They would call to set up the start times. They'd order the materials. They would do all the stuff, walk the final job, this and that. Or here's another one. If you're having quality issues, and you ever been there, Mike? I'm sure you have, because you've done this, where the job's done, you do the final walkthrough, you go do the final walkthrough, and the customer lights you up, man. They're just like nitpicking this and nitpicking that and pissed about this and whatever it is.
You walk into the room full of tape all over the walls.
Yeah. It's like a shotgun of blue tape, hit the room. So I started bringing the crew with me on the final walkthrough. I'm like, and the first time I did it, this lady, it couldn't have been scripted any better because she was the perfect one to do this with. We got outside. It was a crew of 3 guys. They walked. I said, I'm going to take notes. You guys just follow me, and I want you to see what it's like to be part of a final walkthrough. We walk through. We get outside, and she ripped me a new one for like 20 minutes, man. And we get outside, and they're all looking down. They wouldn't even look at me out by the truck. And I just said, any thoughts? And crew leader looks up. He goes, we're sorry. I said, okay, so what did you learn? And what they learn is they learn what your customers are seeing. They learn, about what it means to truly clean up right or detail a room or make something this or that, right? So again, you have to be willing to put your ego aside that you're the be all end all to your company, and you need to bring these guys along with you. That's how you get your team on board, is make them part of the solution. So or you go through and you job cost a project, you totally get your butt kicked. And so you sit down with the crew leader and you go, all right, man, hey, if we could do this job over again, how would we approach it differently? And sometimes it's on you as the estimator. Sometimes it's on you as them as the crew lead and how they manage the project. Sometimes it's just, I wouldn't do a thing differently. They were a batshit crazy client, right? And it just is what it is. And you get a couple of those a year. But at least you're bringing them into being part of the solution, which meets a need that every human being has, and that's the need to be significant. Everyone wants to feel that their work is of significance. And if you're just calling all the shots, making all the decisions, then they're quote unquote just a painter. It's playing the long game with them. Like, you're not going to have one meeting on how to do a walkthrough or how to lead a project and have it fixed forever. This is like marketing and hiring. This is an ongoing thing where you're always evolving. You're going to get to the point where, I used to send a text out to all 6 or 7 of my crew leaders in a text thread, take a couple pictures. I go, I have no idea how much time to put to this thing. What do you guys think? Right? Bring them into the solution. And what's funny is you could send a picture. You go, how many man hours do you think? One guy will be 8, another guy will be 28. They're all over the place, and that's a riot. We used to do that in our crew leader trainings. We'd put a picture of something up on the side on the screen, and go, all right, everybody write down the man hours to paint the job. We'd give them the scope, write the man hours. They were all over the place. So that meant we had to get on board with teaching them about our production rates and how we come up with things, and different. And we had some really fun, not arguments, but good heated discussion back and forth, where I just sit back and let the crew leaders argue with each other on how to best do the thing. And that sharpens your axe, makes you better as a team.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I mean by it pulls it together. Because one of the other needs that all human beings have is the need for community. All right. And, if you're creating your culture, I do this whole workshop on, it's called the people game, where significance is a thing and this and that. Well, every human being has a fear of the outsider. That's why if you go to South America in the jungles, you see heads on sticks, right? Because the outsider was exploring and the villagers killed him because he's the outsider. Okay. Same thing happens with your crew. You hire the new guy. Nobody likes him, right? Nobody ever liked the new guy when I hired the new guy. Because if the new guy was good, they hated him. If the new guy had a couple chinks in his armor and wasn't up to speed on a couple tasks, they hated him because he's going to slow us down. So it's our job as a leader to understand that people fear the outsider, but we have a responsibility to create community. Same with your customers. You go out and sell the job, you're Mike, you're clean cut, you knock on the door, you do your little thing with your tablet, they hire you. And then the first day of the job comes around, big burly guy with tats and a Fu Manchu knocks on the door, says, hey, we're here to paint your house. It's your crew leader, right? So how can you create community with your clients? That's where social media comes in, highlighting your employees, showing them that they have a dog and a baby too, and the guy's a deacon in his church or whatever it might be, sending a video, before the job saying, hey, Mary, I'm here with Scott. Scott's our crew leader. Right? He's going to be calling you in a couple of days. And hey, Mary, can't wait to do your job. Like, now you're a human being. You're creating community with people.
Yep.
You bring the new guy in. What do most of us do with the new guy? Back to the employees here. Say, I'm like a squirrel. I'm all over. So
yeah. What we do is a simple solution for that introduction is the salesperson, whenever they book a job, they hand a book job packet to the homeowner. And it has the profile of the production manager and the crew leads. And so whatever crew gets assigned to that job, they will have already had a profile of that person.
Yeah. Or when you hire a new guy, sadly, most of us, the new guy shows up and you go, oh shit, he's starting today, isn't he? Okay. Where, no, hey guys, Monday, Tom Reber's starting. We're doing a company breakfast. We're going to kick our start times back a little later. New guy walks in the door. You hand him his business cards. You hand him his cell phone, his tablet, his whatever you got, his uniform. Everyone's like, hey, man, welcome to the team. You're eating together. Like, that's building that community. It's little things like that that don't really take a whole lot. They just take some intention.
No, building a community is really important, not even for just in order to have that good work culture, but to have your team stick around, to have employee retention, right? Mm-hmm. Turnover is one of the most costly parts of business, is having to retrain someone and amalgamate them into your business.
Yep.
So I really liked, I use the term delegate a lot, and I think I'm going to switch over to the term ownership now, because you're absolutely right. Delegating is handing off a task. If you have like a virtual assistant who just like does administration or just like data entry, like that is kind of more a delegate. But if you're having a teammate now do a walkthrough with a homeowner and collect a check, that's ownership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're a crew leader. You own the project. Yeah. You own it. And you're also compensated on how well you own it. you know?
Do you recommend your team having a bonus structure, or like what type of compensation plan do you typically recommend for painting contractors for their team?
Yeah, I think it's phases, right? I've made every bonus plan mistake under the sun. And the one that I've landed on and I swear by, and I would bet my kids on, is we have what's called a crew leader management fee. I don't call it a bonus. Only the crew leader is eligible for it because that's the cherry position in the company. I want people to want to be a crew leader. And it is based on basically, was it a great experience for the client? Did we hit our budget numbers? And was everything done safe on the project, right? And it's one of those things that you can, based on how you do it, how you start it, you have your hourly pay. So if you're a crew leader in my company, your hourly pay is to paint. The crew leader management fee is to manage the job. And if you manage the job properly, then there's certain ways that we do those metrics that can put another $1,000, $1,500 a month into your pocket a month. Okay. Which really moves the needle for a guy. And as far as like a team bonus, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of some of those things because I think they're really hard to measure. So I like, when it comes to the rest of the team and the company, we'll set goals like, hey guys, if we average X amount of % gross profit in this next quarter, everyone's going to get another $800 for those guys. Right. So it's more of a gang tackling as a team type thing.
Not so much piece rate on each job, but more bonuses based on outcome.
Yeah. And then they end up policing each other and, you know, kicking each other in the ass when needed. And quite frankly, they'll cover for each other too. You know, I've had that happen where like one of the guys, his kid's got a soccer game and it's, you know, he wants to be at the soccer game and the other guys are like, cut out, we got you, we're good. And they have each other's back, you know?
Yeah. It's remarkable what can happen to a business's growth, like its profitability and revenue, just by having something improved, like culture and how the team dynamic, you know, works together.
Well, listen, you know, when I said like, it's hard to track, like for all the bonus stuff and this and that, part of the reason that I don't go real deep into that with the company is most contractors suck at tracking shit to begin with. So I don't want to, like, most of the guys listening to this don't even track their leads. Maybe 2% of them track their lead by lead source, right? Their leads by lead source. Probably none of them, maybe one or two, are tracking their leads by gross profit. What lead sources are the highest gross profit jobs, right? You could break, you know, marketing, you could break this stuff down 1,000 different ways. Most couldn't even tell you how many leads came in this week. Okay. And so that's why I'm very mindful to not do too much when it comes to like formal other things that require a ton of tracking until a company's up, you know, where it's some decent revenue, $3-5 million and stuff. And then you have more of a team in place and you can start getting a little bit
as simple as possible, get to that critical mass and then start being creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Tom, I wish we could go for 2 hours today, but you got a busy schedule. We got stuff to do. Thank you so much for being on, man. I have like 2 pages of notes for me personally. So thanks for that. And if people want to get a hold of you, how should they do that?
Yeah, go, you know, anywhere online. You can go to the Contractor Fight, check it out. If you guys want to see the formula we use to get 50% on projects, you go to the contractorfight.com/50. We got a free tool there. And, you know, we're YouTube, our podcast, all that good stuff. So
I'll put it in the description below. And yeah, definitely check that out. And you got 70,000 subs on YouTube. I mean, that doesn't happen selling fluff. So you're onto something, man. And congrats on everything so far. And I'm stoked to collaborate in the future.
I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks again, man.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.